All right, Brandon. So it would be the most logical thing to ask a former linebacker like yourself what you see when you look at Abdul Carter on the football field. Everybody sees the highlights and they say, okay, he's going to be a blue chip player. He had to be one of the top three picks in the draft. But I'm curious from a linebacker's eye, what are some of the details that impress you the most about him as a player?
What impresses me the most about him is his motor. He never stops. Like you'll see some great players because they're so athletic or they're so gifted that they like take plays off, and you will never see him take a play off. He's playing defensive end and he's in the picture, no matter where the ball is thrown. It can be thrown 20, 30 yards downfield, and you'll see Carter rush the quarterback and sprint down the field to try to track that ball down. That's something that if you don't watch him every day and you don't follow him like I do because I'm a Penn State linebacker, you might not see that. I mean, the Giants are really really lucky to have him, and he's lucky to be in New York.
Where do you think he has made the most improvement from the time that he first got to Penn State, and then after the 3 years that he played for the Nittany Lions, now he's got to make this jump to the NFL, and everybody knows that is a big step.
I mean, I think he made the most improvement in his edge rushing. I mean, but people don't like understand that this was Abdul Carter's first year playing defensive end and within the Penn State community because he was a first team, all Big Ten linebacker. I was like, why do you want to move this guy that's so good at linebacker to end? And I can remember going to the first, like my first spring practice, seeing him play at end, and like he was working with the number twos because he had just moved to end, and they could not conduct practice with him at the position. It was like they did say slow down, but it was like other guys are trying to get work out here. We got to see the running backs, the cut. We have to see the front side offensive linemen. I mean, they were passing the ball, but he was tapping Drew on his shoulder every time they running by him. But he's learned to use the bend. I maybe he did have that early on, but he like his bend off the edge is phenomenal. It's like something I haven't seen. He'll dip and rip and get low and be at a full speed and go right around you.
Well, because he played off ball linebacker for the first 2 years before that conversion to edge rusher, as you just talked about, I'm curious from your perspective, had he stayed as an off ball linebacker, where do you think his ceiling would have been? I'm guessing that he, bursts onto the scene because he's an edge rusher. A lot of times the off ball linebackers don't get as much pub.
Yeah, I guess the game has evolved, and you want your game wrecker and your best athletes to be able to go after the passer because this is a quarterback centric game, and anybody that can go after the quarterback, you want them there. But his ceiling would have I think he could have gone number three if he would have played off the ball. I mean, like we played Abdul at spy sometimes. We took like the Penn State's defense took him out of the rush and spied him occasionally. He got like 3 or 4 sacks playing his old spy position. And he also he had a couple interceptions playing off the ball. So they would the defense would slide the protection him so that like our defensive coordinator would move him around. So I think he could have gone number three if he would have played off the ball as well, because the talent was is evident.
Well, he has said to us, the New York media, in his brief interactions with us, that because he's only been an edge rusher for 1 year, he thinks there's a lot more to learn. So I'm curious as to what you see from him. What will he have to get better? What is he going to have to develop as he becomes an NFL player?
Well, I mean, this is nitpicky now because we're talking about somebody that is like it could have been a number one pick in the draft, but everyone can always get better. I mean, in NFL, just you got to use your hands and you're like refine your technique. everybody is an All-American, some All-Pro, and like you can go very, very far. No question, he's going to be an outstanding player, but he can be an all-time great player. If he uses his hands and works to give to become an all-around player.
Mhm. How much strength do you think he'll add too? Because you know as well as I do, Brandon, guys get into the league and they still have to mature physically as well as mentally and everything else that comes with the pro game. He's what, about 6'3", 6'4", 250 pounds. Do you think there's much more room to add some more bulk or power to his game? Or is that not something you'd want to do because of his speed?
Yeah, I mean, you want to be as big as you can without losing speed. And Abdul is naturally a big guy. I think you could play in that three technique. If people, I heard a knock on him is that was small and does he do things don't get pushed around? No, I think he's going to be pushing people around. I mean, if you look at him, his frame, if you take a look at his neck, how it comes down. His neck doesn't come down; it goes out. And I think that he actually has trouble keeping the weight down versus the opposite. So he could bulk up. I think the Penn State program does a good job of preparing people for the league, but the NFL is the NFL, and there's always room for growth. So he could definitely put on weight, and as long as the speed and that his burst isn't affected, I mean, the sky's the limit.
Now, one of the common things a lot of the quote experts have been talking about with him for the last year, they see the number 11, they talk about Micah Parsons, how he moved around in the Penn State defense, came to the NFL and became a game wrecker when the Cowboys started to use him more on the pass rush. I don't know that it's fair to compare players, so I won't ask you to do that, but I will ask you for maybe what are the biggest similarities or the biggest differences that you see in those two players.
I had never seen like Micah play edge in college. So like Micah moved to edge when he got to the NFL. They moved him around. They brought him out to edge, but Micah was an off the ball linebacker. That probably explains why he was still on the board at number 11. It was a COVID year, and it was so he didn't play, but that explains why he was on the board at number 11. Um, I see that in my mind. I think that Abdul is a more natural end than Micah. I think he is a bigger frame. He's naturally a bigger guy, but both are outstanding. And Micah is arguably the best defensive player in NFL. And you talk about comparisons, it's unfair to compare, but it is fair to compare. They came from the same place, wore the same number, and had a similar from a similar team. Um, I think Abdul has that potential.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. If you were the defensive coordinator of the Giants, and I know you're happy doing what you're doing now, so I won't ask you to take that office. But if you were, how would you work him into this defense? Because there were those people, and I'm not one of them, who said, well, you have Thibodeaux, you have Burns. Why do you want to draft another edge rusher? Well, you and I know you can never have enough. But how would you work him into the lineup? How would you get this guy on the field?
I would move him around. He's first is the NFL. You're drinking from the fire hose, so it could be a difficult transition for anybody. But depending how he picks up the defense, which I expect him to do well, I would also move him around. I would have like three defensive ends on the field at the same time, similar to Spagnola, way they did back in the day when we played with Strahan, OC, and Tuck. And passing situations, you want to get your best guys, best pass rushers out on the field, and he would be the person that would be like sort of the joker, the one that I would like play in different positions and drop in sometimes and bring him sometimes. But in third down situations, I would have all three on the field, and then and during the game, I would just rotate and have three starters, and if somebody gets the hot end, you stay with them and ride.
I think a tricky thing earlier you mentioned spy, which I think is also certainly something he could do because of his athleticism. But I guess the other thing I'm curious about, Brandon, is sometimes when you have a dominant pass rusher, he gets to, I hate to almost use the word freelance, but sometimes he's not necessarily tight within the scope of the play. I wonder how was Carter in terms of fitting into the system? Because I'm sure the Giants system is going to be a little bit different than the Nittany Lions ran.
And he was a great fit. There was I didn't I'm not in the Penn State defensive coordinating room, but I know a little bit about football, and he was rarely out of position. We were a number 3 defense in the country. It's just people were in the right spots, and there was enough room for Abdul to have a inside or outside move, when in crucial situations. But if it was time for him to crash down inside because somebody was coming from the outside, he was in the right spot, which is why the defense is sound. And I think that's why he was so highly regarded. I mean, you look at him on tape, you rarely will see him out of position or make it a mental error. And that's so important at this level.
Oh, no question. You know how coaches hate MEs. I mean, that's the first thing that's going to get your butt on the bench.
Yeah. Coaches sometimes give you a minus when you make the dang on play. Hey, coach, I got a tackle for loss. It's like minus. I'm not going to name any names, but they're bringing up old memories. Minus, I got a sack. I think it's a plus.
I catch you. So as a rookie, how much of an impact do you think he'll have now? Because obviously, as he grows, matures, gains experience, and gains knowledge, he's got the potential to be a dominant player. We know that. But how do you keep fans, I guess, their expectations on an even keel without expecting too much from him right out of the box?
I don't think anybody's going to have higher expectations for him than he has like for himself. He's always chased excellence and greatness, and I think he'll do that as well. But it is the NFL, and there is a transition period for most people. I can remember like watching Micah in his first game playing linebacker and being called out for being out of position, like on a run pass read coming up, and people saying, "Oh, he's a bust. Look at him; he's out of position. He doesn't know what to do." And now he's going to be maybe the top non-quarterback player and paid player in the league. So there's definitely a transition, and you get better. Like every year, the biggest improvements in players are generally from their first year to their second year. Strahan, for example, arguably the best defensive end in Giants history, not best linebacker, but best defensive end, and arguably one of the best defensive ends of all time. And he had only a couple sacks his first few years until he became the best technician I've ever seen. With using his hands and positioning on getting sacks.
All right, so we've all seen the tape, Brandon. Can you tell us something about the guy? What should we know about Abdul Carter? We know he's tough. We know he's intense. We know he loves ball. Heck, the way he came back after the injury and played against Notre Dame in the bowl game, had a sack and a bunch of tackles. There's a lot of stuff that we could see just by looking at the tape. What should the Giants know about this guy that they're getting?
He's a good person. I mean, his teammates love him, because he's put in, like, he's a team guy. He's put in team first, and he works with his kids in Philadelphia. We try to give back in his community. He work to give back on campus with things. We have something called Dance Marathon. Actively participate in those things. I think he's a great guy and will be a good teammate and will be great in a locker. That's something that you don't see on tape. And if you didn't know, I've watched him from when he came in to where he is now and how he matured and he's grown as a man. So, I mean, that's like one of the things I admire most. I've seen his development, and he's a good player and a good guy.
Well, and that kind of ball shoots to a second question. Now he's going to be a rookie in the NFL as opposed to being the big honcho in the room, right? Where he was, I'm sure, one of the leaders of that Penn State squad. That can be an adjustment for some guys. How well do you think he'll melt in to maybe not being the biggest name in the room?
I mean, That remains to be seen. You know, once you get out on the field, I mean, it doesn't say first year, second year on you. The tape is the tape, but I think he'll handle it well. Just to learn. Um, it took him some time to learn at Penn State. He didn't when he was moved to defensive end. They didn't slot him in at number one. He wasn't the starter on day one because he didn't know the plays. But ultimately, he became the starter because like the tape doesn't lie.
Right. So you don't think the pressure of being a number one pick and number three overall and being in New York, that probably won't really affect him too much.
It can affect anybody. I doubt if it's going to affect him. I mean, he's coming from a place where he's confident in himself and his ability. He's been humbled before. It's not like he's never been knocked on his butt, and got back up again. And he may have to be humbled a few times, but in the end, I'm confident that he'll make the adjustment.
All right, so the Giants hit the field for rookie minicamp. Actually, it is on Friday they'll be on the field. What advice would you give him? You've been through this. You played 7 years in the league before. You've been known what it's like to be a rookie trying to find your way. What advice would you give him as he steps on the field for the first time as a Giant and tries to navigate his first professional season?
Be a sponge. Um, not only in the film room or on and with the X's and O's, but look at the older guys and how they carry themselves and what they do, and try to look at the find people that you respect and admire and that are successful to where you want to be, and try to not necessarily emulate them, but pick up the things that they're doing that are differentiating them. So try to learn as much as you can from the older guys that have been in the locker room and been through this process.
Well, it's clear that he understands something about Giants tradition and history because when he came here for the visit, as you know, he took the picture of Lawrence Taylor and even asked about the number. But it's obvious that he does have a very high regard for what being a Giants linebacker means.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing that you can say about that Abdul is he like seeks greatness. He came to Penn State and took on the moniker of a number 11, knowing what that meant, and achieved, or at par, or maybe even surpassed, it's like some of the people there that had number 11. And it's although we're talking about Lawrence Taylor here, he wants to be a great linebacker, and he loves being a part of a traditional franchise. And Lawrence Taylor is the epitome of excellence, and he was seeking that. So I definitely don't knock him for that. I admire him for going for it. Like 43 I mean 53. I think he may have to negotiate with Darius on that one, but and Harry Carson, and Harry will be all right with it. So 40, 50, 53 is open. So
And I know you remember some of those days yourself.
yeah, Harry used to say, "Look at this imposter." Rich, you must see Harry give me a hard time about where his stuff is. Like, look, I'm holding it down, man. I'm holding this down for you. With respect, standing on your shoulders, Harry. Yeah.
Hey, before I let you go, Brandon, let me ask you about Theo Johnson for just a second. You know, the Giants had him last year. They were very happy to get him. A lot of high hopes, did some really nice things, showed some flashes. Then he hurt his foot, had to have surgery during the offseason. But this is a guy who they really see a tremendous amount of upside to him. I wonder if you could just give me a couple of quick thoughts on what you think his future will be with this team.
Look, he was on the same field with Tyler Warren, and he was the better tight end at that time. And Tyler Warren is a generational player at Penn State, and he does it all. But at playing the position of tight end, like our tight ends coach played the best player at that time. He has tremendous athletic ability. I think he tested as one of the top tight ends from an athletic skills level of any tight end in the draft history. If if he can stay healthy, and that's the same thing with all of us. You know, the sky's the limit. He has a very, very high ceiling. I mean, he can block, he can go up and catch contested balls, and he has a dog in him. Like all the great offensive players, you know, have a defensive mentality. I think about I played with Steve Smith, I played with Jeremy Shockey. Those are dudes that had that were defensive guys that, you know, that I had an affinity towards, because they didn't just want to beat you. They didn't want to just score. They wanted to show you that they're better than you. And Theo has that in him. I've seen it.
Cool. Well, they say you got to be a little nuts, right, to be a defensive player. So maybe these offensive guys that you're talking about, and I knew Shockey too, he was a little nuts.
Yeah, they're a lot more cerebral over on that side of the ball. We're a little bit different over here, but that's all right. That's why you got multiple. That's why you got multiple positions. Some people aren't a good fit for certain things.
No doubt. Hey, Brandon, why don't you get everybody caught up on what you're doing these days? I know the Karli Short Foundation is something that's very dear to your heart. Maybe you could pass along some information on how people could maybe get involved in that as well.
Yes, yes. So, tragically, I lost my daughter, and her unborn child to gun violence in 2021. I'm a member of Penn State's Board of Trustees, and I know how difficult it is for people making a transition into school, especially people that have been suffered from gun violence. And we formed a foundation to provide scholarships for students that were affected by gun violence. Not only do we provide scholarships, we provide the mentorship and support that they need to get through those first years and to go off and be successful. We've raised, in the past 4 years, we've raised over $1 million. We had 9 scholars. We had our first scholar graduate. We have an annual gala in Pittsburgh. This year, it's on June 14th. We have auction items. The Giants are always so generous. You know, Mr. Mara, Allison Stang could be all in with having auction items. And you know, our gala is always a good time. But what's even better is like seeing the effect that our financial and emotional support has on these kids. That gun violence is an epidemic. It affects almost all of us, and this is our way to try to make an impact.
Brandon, do you have a website where people can get more information?
Yeah, it's at ksbt .com. That's ksbt.com. It's the Karli Short Better Tomorrow Foundation.
Folks, if you don't know Brandon Short, and I know I know him a lot better than most of you, first-class guy all the way, always was when he was with the Giants. I missed him when he went to Carolina. I was happy when he came back, and I'm so happy he could join us here today. Brandon, thank you.
What's a giant? Is a giant. What's a giant?
Switch to the Giants, my friend. Stay well.
I thank you.